Hi there. Welcome to Healthy Way Vibes. I'm Cyrene,
Hi, I'm John.
and we are so excited for you to join us today. We have a special guest. Her name is Sue Ward, and we're going to talk about the anti-inflammatory foods, which actually cause more harm than good, and bring some insight around it.
So before we bring Sue on, I'm just going to share a little bit about her background. She's a board certified nutrition specialist. She's a director of nutrition and education at Sonovive Medical Institute, where she manages the nutrition, the kitchen, garden, fitness, and guest education departments. She helps with special projects and assists with research and has appeared on the Dr. Oz show. She holds a bachelor's degree in exercise science from Southern Connecticut State University, and she has a master's degree in human nutrition from the University of Bridgeport, is trained by the Institute for Functional Medicine, IFM, and her personal website, sue-ward.com. You can find her online courses and blogs for anyone interested in nutrition, fitness, natural health, and much, much more. She's passionate about education, and her favorite topic is about liver health. And she believes a healthy liver is essential for optimum health. She has over 20 years experience in corporate fitness, 12 years in experience in clinical nutrition, and has studied all forms of integrative medicine. So during her career as a fitness trainer, she spent 10 years training everyday people for half and full marathons, which I think I need her help on that, using a moderate run-walk approach as outlined in her book, Cruising for Fitness or Finish Lines, a run-walk program for everyday people. So let's bring Sue on and start the show.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Sue.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We were wondering, what is an anti-inflammatory and what is inflammation?
Good question. Yeah, you hear a lot about inflammation these days, right? There's really two types of inflammation. There's acute inflammation and then there's chronic inflammation. So I think what we're going to be talking about is more chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is like when you cut your finger and your immune system sends healing cells out there to repair it. You get some swelling, some redness. That's exactly how the body's designed. But when we talk about chronic inflammation, that's when your immune system is sending out inflammatory cells all over to your tissues, to your joints, but there's no danger. It's just being out there, and then it's there and it remains there. So, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, obviously things like toxins, exposure to toxins, excessive amounts of alcohol can cause chronic inflammation in a person's body. But the biggest driver of chronic inflammation comes from the food we're eating. So we have a lot of control over that, And I should also mention that every chronic disease has chronic inflammation at the root, at the foundation of what's happening, including cancer. So, but what the good news is there's so much that we can do to control this in our body. And there are some markers in your blood that you can look for to see if you have inflammation somewhere in your body. It doesn't always pinpoint where, but yeah, so maybe we should talk about what really promotes, what are the foods that are doing the damage, right?
Right. What are the nasties?
Any guesses before we go right into it?
You mentioned alcohol, but excessive alcohol. I mean, everything is moderation, but there's some things that are probably more, even in moderation. I would say alcohol.
I say sweets and candies.
Sweets.
Okay, Cyrene, you got it. One of the biggest drivers of inflammation is sugar. And specifically added sugars. So these are sugars that are added to a food product or added to processed foods. It can even be things like, natural honey and maple syrup in excessive amounts. But those aren't really the biggest causes of inflammation. In fact, honey's an anti-inflammatory. So it's more of the processed sugars, okay? Think of, yes, candy, donuts, cookies, pies, all of that stuff. And the stuff that is highly processed that has a lot of artificial colorings, flavorings, and things like that. But the sugar that's the worst of all of them is high fructose corn syrup. And that is in almost every processed food product. So that's why we say processed foods kind of have to be reduced. That's a really big one because that is what most people are eating. I mean, most people are doing a lot of restaurant food and fast foods. So number one is added sugars. We have to be careful of that. Now, I do believe you can safely have some added sugar in your diet, but if we're going to do that, we should follow the American Heart Association's recommendations: no more than 25 grams for women, 36 grams for men daily. And that's a reasonable amount. That's definitely a reasonable amount. The next one, since we just started talking about processed foods and people eating out, another big food that causes inflammation would be damaged oils or hydrogenated oils. Restaurants really use these damaged oils for everything. So it's not just the deep fried foods, but of course, those would be some of the biggest offenders when we talk about French fries, onion rings, potato chips, all of that, stuff. There's a lot of damaged oils in there, and too much of that, again, is going to promote this chronic inflammation in the body. But we don't eat that, right?
Not now.
Not when Sue's on the
Because this Healthy Way Vibes show is doing a great job at getting the word out to people.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
So can I ask a question? You're saying sugar, does salt cause inflammation, or that is a totally different?
Yeah, that would be processed sodium.
Process.
So and so that's going to be more in processed foods. Like food companies will use processed sodium to preserve the foods. They use it as a preservative. Like unrefined salt, natural salt in its normal state, sea salt or even pink Himalayan salt that has not been refined in any way, is okay because there's a balance of nutrients. It's not all sodium, but it has all the other minerals and trace minerals that make that a balancing food. So food companies, for example, soups, if you buy commercial soups in the grocery store, look at the sodium content and you will see high numbers, where we're supposed to have maybe 2,500 milligrams a day. And that might be in 1/2 a cup of soup, and we're already there. But yeah, so that's actually another one. So that would go under the category of, the processed foods. So think processed sodium, foods that have a lot of artificial colorings, preservatives, MSG or monosodium glutamate, which is a type of sodium. All of that is really harmful to our body in excessive amounts. I mean, if you were to have this like on occasion, not a big deal, but that's not what people are actually doing right now. So yeah, for sure. With processed foods, we should also talk about processed meats. So hot dogs, bacon, sausages, even deli sandwich meats, that they have a lot of nitrates and nitrites, processed sodium, sometimes artificial flavors and things like that. Again, big drivers of inflammation. But I will say that you can get those products, as a healthier alternative. You can find uncured, no nitrate deli meats, at a natural food market. And it can't, and that would not be as bad. That would be actually a good alternative to your typical, do you remember bologna sandwiches?
Yeah, I remember them with the little, was it like the macaroni in it and stuff? Like,
yeah, I don't even know what bologna is actually.
I remember commercials a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think with what you're saying, it goes back to maybe it's just the number of ingredients, right? Like when you're looking at the packaging and so forth, if you're seeing like preservatives, coloring, just things that you can't pronounce, I think that'd be a good starting point.
That's a good starting point. And definitely if you see things that say nitrate, nitrite, hydrogenated, hydrolyzed, fractionated, all of these terms, and you're like, oh, I wonder what that means, So what should an ingredient list be for French fries? Just what do you think?
Potatoes and salt.
Potatoes, salt, and maybe oil, maybe a
Oh, yeah.
certain
Sure.
type of oil.
The ingredients.
That would be typical 3 ingredients. If you make them at home, that's what you got. And if you bake them, it's going to be a little bit better than if you were going to deep fry them. That can be a good alternative for someone who really likes French fries. But most French fries out there in fast food restaurants have anywhere from 15 to 22 ingredients,
Wow.
including sugar. A lot of people don't know that, but that's what makes people addicted to them, to those flavors. So when you're eating a lot of these processed foods, and I want to also include artificial sweeteners like Splenda, those are also inflammatory, and highly processed cheeses, because the cheeses have a lot of processed sodium and very inflammatory. But just like with meats, you can get dairy products that are less inflammatory if you go for raw milk cheeses or goat and sheep products, which are a little bit less inflammatory. Okay, so that's an option maybe for some people if they can do dairy. But having all these damaging substances in our processed food, that can actually impair the function of your endothelial cells that line your arteries. And this is what causes heart disease and problems with our whole vascular system and strokes and things like that. So we have so much control over that because we can choose not to eat it. But on the other hand, the food companies have a lot of control because they make it taste so darn good with all these artificial things that we get addicted to it and we can't stop. So there's kind of a combination thing going on there. But let's talk about what are the foods that really fight inflammation.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, because I think it's almost an easy thing. It's just mainly we can put it in 2 categories. Processed foods promote inflammation, and whole foods are actually anti-inflammatory. So foods that are close to the way they are in nature. Most of your fruits and vegetables are all anti-inflammatory foods, almost every single one. So the more whole fruits and vegetables that you get in your diet, the better. And that is without exposing them to high heat oils. Okay, so we can go back a little bit and go, well, wait a minute. What about tempura? Because now you're taking some vegetables and you're deep frying them in oil. So, okay, so that's going to cancel that out. So that's not close to the way they are in nature. Just remember that, close to the way they are in nature. And then you got it. We're in the middle of summer right now. This is the best time, isn't it, you guys, for fresh fruits and cherries? Oh my gosh, I love cherries. Yeah. Watermelon, berries. This is the first year at Sonavive we are growing strawberries. Wow. We have an entire strawberry patch and they're amazing. Yeah, those are very anti-inflammatory. The more you can do, the better. So your whole foods, questions on that?
Yeah, I have a quick question, because when you're talking about fruits, it's high in sugar. What if people think, oh my God, it has too much sugar, and isn't sugar supposed to cause an inflammation?
Good question. And that's a really good example of what we call food fear. Nature is never going to poison us. Well, unless you're eating a poisonous mushroom or something, but in general, no, those are natural sugars that occur in the fruits. And they are, you have to remember the fruits also have fiber and water and all of that. So it doesn't typically drive up your blood sugar. Now, if you were to drink fruit as a juice, if you were like to take apples and juice them, that would be a different story. Fruit juice, because it's so concentrated and now we've removed the fiber, it can drive up blood sugar in people that have a blood sugar problem. Have you ever heard of people saying, oh, don't drink carrot juice, it's going to skyrocket? Okay. That is really individual, and it's really based on the person. So for example, and I actually did this experiment. I drank 4 ounces of carrot juice and I gave my husband 4 ounces of pure carrot juice and waited 30 minutes. And then we measured our blood glucose. And my blood glucose had skyrocketed. His was perfectly fine. It was exactly where it should be after eating a carbohydrate food. Mm-hmm. So one food can have different reactions in different people, you know, depending on how your body processes those carbohydrates. So for someone that really doesn't have blood sugar problems, or they don't really have highs and lows like that in their energy, they might be fine with carrot juice, beet juice, mangoes, or any of the sweet fruits like watermelon. But I think that when we instruct people, or when the internet instructs people to not eat fruit, I think that's a dangerous recommendation, because that's where all of our cancer fighting, anti-inflammatory substances are. They're in that food. Mm-hmm. And so we really need that. Now, obviously you don't want to go overboard, but if you're concerned about your blood sugar, then stay with the berries, stay with the low sugar fruits like grapefruit, lemons, limes, citrus, you know, and most of your berries are going to be very, very low. But I wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, unless you're a type 2 diabetic, you might have to be a little more careful. But a general healthy person, you should be eating at least 2 servings of fruit a day. But summertime, I'm up to like 5 a day right now. So, good question.
So since it is summer, you know, you mentioned berries, and a lot of the, like, watermelon is a favorite in the summer. As we head into, you know, later on in the, like, we're halfway through summer, what are some suggestions where some of the people who aren't accessing some of these fresh fruits and vegetables, you know, for preparing to for the fall season, like for the rest of the years?
Yeah. So a good thing to do is, right now, if you're getting a lot of fresh fruits and berries, fantastic, freeze them. Getting frozen organic berries is great. That will take you through the fall, through the winter. You can use your berries in smoothies, or you can thaw them out and use them in your plain yogurt if you're eating yogurt. It's best to have yogurt, add your own fruit to it, because typically the commercial yogurts will add so much stuff. Yeah, and just keep thinking of the word close to the way it is in nature. That's it. So when we talk about frozen, that is pretty close. All we're doing is freezing it. And if we're talking even about dehydrated fruits, it's okay if you dehydrate them yourself, but if you buy them dehydrated, they tend to be really high in sugar, because there's always added sugar in those. So you definitely have to read the labels on that. So definitely fruits and vegetables. I think if you can do about 75% of your diet as whole foods, as much as you possibly can, you're going to be in really good shape when it comes to chronic inflammation. Yeah. What else? Fatty fish. Remember, our salmon has omega-3 fats, you know, that's a great source. Even some nuts and seeds in their raw form can be good, but try not to go out and get your dry roasted nuts that are salted or rolled in sugar, because then you've taken a whole food product and you've made it now an inflammatory food, you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's hard because we're so, you know, for those that, you know, we all grew up through our kids' ages, we've been exposed to that, like the sweets and the saltiness and the things that are convenient. And so we're, you know, we need to start to slowly transition to some of the healthier choices. That doesn't mean that they're going to be less tasty or less filling or satisfy our cravings, because there are,
right.
You know, luckily there are better choices today than there were, you know, 10 years ago.
Yeah. And it's always going to be better if you could, whatever it is, if you could make it yourself, because then you have the control over what's going in. Even if you're making cookies with your kids, you have the control over how much sugar is going in. So if the recipe calls for a cup of sugar, you can actually put in a quarter cup and it still is pretty good, you know? So you have to experiment with that, but then you can actually change the taste buds of your kids. And then they won't be expecting such a high sugar flavor in things. And when that happens, even fruit tastes extremely sweet when you're not eating a lot of other sugars. Yeah. So another thing that you might think is surprising, did you guys know that coffee is somewhat anti-inflammatory?
Yes.
I know Joel loves his coffee. I stopped drinking coffee for a while.
But here's the
Okay.
thing though, going back to the sugars, like I'm having one right now. But I've been drinking black coffee for almost, gosh, over 15, almost 20 years. Because same thing, I was looking at, every time I have a coffee, not just at home or out, when I'm at dinner, I'm pouring sugar,
Right.
and then I thought, probably not the best for me. I'm eating so much sweets anyways. So I started weaning off of it. It took me probably about a year until I'm just drinking black now. And, like you said, once you get that taste buds changed, even
Right.
a little block of brown sugar, like was a little cube, you can really taste it. Right. So,
Yeah, coffee has some protective substances called polyphenols that are beneficial for our health and beneficial for our gut bacteria too. However, now it's going to be, well, what type of coffee? Because we know pesticides can drive inflammation and cause inflammation. So we need to make sure we're doing an organic coffee. And probably the best type of coffee would be cold brew, because if you brew it, I don't know if we talked about this last time, maybe we did, but if you take one of those French press thingies,
Mhm.
containers, and you put 2 tablespoons of organic fresh ground coffee in there, you fill that with clean, pure water, and you don't press it down. You put it in your refrigerator overnight. And then when you wake up in the morning, you press it down and you heat it up on the stove if you want hot coffee.
Mhm.
It's hot coffee, but it's been brewed in a cold brew process. And what that does, it actually removes a lot of the bitter compounds and a lot of the acidity. And you won't need sugar at all in that coffee, even if you're drinking regular coffee now, because that's what the sugar covers up. It's all the bitter and the acidity. And, I don't know if you've ever had a cup of coffee and you're just like, whoa, and you put some sugar in it and you drink it, and you're like, whoa, no, it needs more. And until it really cuts that. So that's a good way to drink. I drink coffee like that, 1 cup a day, and I put just about a quarter of a teaspoon of honey in it, and that's all it needs. And it has more of a coffee flavor. So then you're going to be getting those beneficial antioxidants that coffee provides and the polyphenols. But when you go to Starbucks and get like caramel macchiato, that's an inflammatory drink. So we really have to put things in 2 categories: processed and whole. I mean, and that's how you can really start to change your diet.
So Sue, really quick, what would you tell someone what they can eat maybe for lunch or for dinner, an anti-inflammatory plate, like just some foods put together without
add into their diet.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually just had an anti-inflammatory plate. I'm going to show you what I had.
Great. Excellent.
Well, it started with this. Can you see this?
Those are
Tomatoes.
beautiful tomatoes.
These are tomatoes I got from the Sonavive Organic Garden, and I was sampling the flavors because we have different varieties. This is a San Marzano tomato, and this is something called a wrinkled tomato. This one was not very wrinkled, but they are a little more wrinkly. And so in order to taste them, I cut them up, I put them in a dish, and I took some basil leaves off of my basil plant, maybe about 10 leaves. and I sprinkled some balsamic vinegar on it and tossed it. And I put a little pink salt on it. And it was amazing. I literally had a bowl of about 5 tomatoes.
Wow.
So this brings up a good question, right? Tomatoes, by the way, you guys, are very anti-inflammatory. They've been studied in prostate cancer. And as you know, the lycopene in tomatoes is beneficial for that. And so what you will hear a lot is you will hear people say, oh, but aren't tomatoes a nightshade vegetable?
Mhm.
And tomatoes and peppers and eggplant and white potato, aren't those nightshades and aren't those inflammatory? Not necessarily. Not to everybody. Some people may have a sensitivity to these, but there are actually no studies showing that they cause inflammation in our joints. So for arthritis and things like that, a person who might react to the nightshade vegetables, it might be for a different reason. And a person might react, actually my husband reacts to tomatoes. If he has too many, if he has one, he's good. If he has a pizza with a ton of tomato sauce, his face breaks out.
Oh, wow.
So again, there's a difference in the quantity, the form. Is it raw? Is it cooked? How much? It's the same thing with bell peppers. And by the way, maybe you guys didn't know this, but did you know that tobacco is a nightshade as well?
No.
So sometimes when it comes to nightshade, it's the amount that's the most important, something definitely in excess. So if people are smokers or they're chewing tobacco, that's going to be very excessive and that can cause a lot of inflammation. So, I mean, I don't really steer people away from nightshades, if they're in their whole form and they're beautiful. Nature gave us this. Do you honestly think nature would poison us?
The
No.
mushrooms.
Maybe a poisonous mushroom, yeah, or a poisonous plant of some sort. So don't eat everything. What's really interesting about that is animals know this, and animals, they're out, even horses, and they're out. They won't eat certain plants. They'll sniff it and they'll go, nope, not for me. And they know what to eat. It's like, I wish we could be a little bit more intuitive like that. Maybe in a whole world we could do that. You already know what might not work for you, but there's definitely not just nightshades, but there's all types of healthy foods that some people don't do well with. I personally don't do well with garlic. Mm-hmm. And again, it's the amount. If I have a tiny amount of whole fresh garlic, I'm good. But if I go to a restaurant and it's loaded with garlic, I actually feel very, very ill after that meal, usually for the whole night. So, I mean, everybody's going to react differently to things, but so I would say the real anti-inflammatory foods are the whole foods. And then the amount is important. Not to do anything really in excess would be a key thing.
Excellent, excellent. So it's time that we've come to the end of the show.
Oh,
So we can always do like part 2. I always, something I always love is to expand on, because these questions and these conversations open up so many other avenues of what people want to hear from our guest speakers. So is there one last thing you want to mention, Sue, in terms of for our listeners out there?
I think it's easy. Let's just go back to processed foods, all of them, including the sugars, the refined carbs. Processed foods promote inflammation in your body. And whole foods, close to the way they are in nature, are anti-inflammatory. If you could kind of stick with that basic thing and work from there, you'll be in good shape.
What are you going to have first, Irene?
I'm going to have more blueberries.
Blueberries?
I'm so excited about that. Yes, and I'm going to freeze them if I'm not going to eat them all.
Dehydrating, right? Dehydrating. That's our project we're going to do.
Yeah.
So thanks so much. And again, everything that we talk about on the Healthway Vibes is just for information. We want to make sure that if you are on a specific diet, or if you're dealing with some health issues or illnesses, make sure you're talking to your health professional to to incorporate or make any changes, or if you're thinking about some of the things that Sue talked about, make sure that you're checking with your specialist, that you can start adding or subtracting, right? Because it's really like what Sue said, is individualized, and it depends on where you're coming in from, and make sure that you're well taken care of. So thanks so much, Sue. Again, we look forward to your next show. And so we're going to be announcing our guest speakers in August soon. So stay tuned on our different channels, and we'll have that out to you as soon as possible. But in the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in. And
Yes, thank you for tuning in.
yeah,
Bye for now.
take care.